What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deeper Dive CFB. Today I'm going to be going through my Week 10 recap. It was a pretty crazy week. It's probably the worst early game slate ever. That 11 a.m. slate was rough, but really picked up after that. A lot of good games and a lot to get into. So with that, guys, let's get right into it.
Yeah, and I'll be right here in my spot with a little more cash than I already got. Tripping off you because you had your shot with my skin tan.
Just to note, guys, I'm going to be doing conference by conference again, so check the description below. I'll have time markers there to help y'all navigate through this video easily. With that, guys, let's get right into it. So starting with the ACC, Clemson blows out Wofford 59-14. Still really not sure why Clemson's playing Wofford on November 2nd. Seems pretty dumb to me. But nevertheless, Trevor Lawrence, 12 of 16 for 218 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very solid game from him. T. Higgins, Amari Rogers, and Justin Ross all had touchdowns from Lawrence in this game. But definitely the big story was Travis Etienne. He only had 9 carries, but he put out 212 yards and 2 touchdowns, certainly making a case to be a Heisman finalist in December. And one funny thing to note, Wofford only completed 4 passes. Just shows the huge talent difference in this one. Like I said, not sure why they're playing Wofford on November 2nd. Play that game early in the year, or just don't play Wofford at all. But Clemson to go on the road to North Carolina State next week. Shouldn't have any trouble there. North Carolina State has not looked good this year. But they will play Wake Forest, though. And we're going to talk about Wake Forest in a second. But, that's a team that's 7-1 right now and playing good football. So we'll see if Clemson gets a challenge from them. I doubt it. But nevertheless, guys, Clemson beats Wofford 59-14. And like I said, guys, next is Wake Forest. They improved to 7-1 with a nice 44-10 victory over North Carolina State. Jamie Newman, their quarterback, coming off injury the last few weeks, played really well. Was 25 of 38 for 287 yards and 5 total touchdowns. Defense did their job, forcing 3 turnovers from North Carolina State. Demon Deacons definitely playing complimentary football in this one. Like I said, they're 7-1. Sucks they're in the Atlantic this year because, they have Clemson with them. They'd be the for sure number 1 in the Coastal right now. And don't worry, we'll talk about the Coastal in a second. But as for Wake Forest, they'll go on the road to play Virginia Tech, and then they'll go on the road to play Clemson these next 2 weeks. We're going to find out a lot more about them. Maybe if they just feasted off a week here in the ACC, or if they are legit. I think next week's game against Virginia Tech will be a pretty good indicator of that, because I think Virginia Tech is a very beatable team. It's definitely going to be a good game next week. Personally, I don't think Wake Forest is quite on Clemson's level yet. I don't really think they're even close, but we'll see. But nevertheless, guys, Wake Forest is now 7-1. Next, guys, Virginia Tech loses an absolute heartbreaker in South Bend. Lost this game 21-20 to Notre Dame. Virginia Tech elected to go with Quincy Patterson at quarterback. Very effective running the ball. He had 19 carries for 77 yards, but just completely inept passing. Was only 9 of 28 passing the ball, just very inefficient. Did not do a good job there. The one thing Virginia Tech did really well was force 3 turnovers. 2 of them were Ian Book interceptions, and then one of them was a huge play. It was 14-7 late in the first half. Notre Dame had the ball inside the 5 looking to score and go up 21-7 before the half, and Virginia Tech pokes the ball out. And returns it all the way back. So just a 14-point swing completely changed the game. It made it 14-14 at half. And then the Virginia Tech defense was really solid in the second half, and they actually led the game 20-14 late in the fourth quarter. Bad thing for them, though, was their offense was 4 of 16 on third down and was really unable to ice the game. They had plenty of opportunities to put Notre Dame away, but couldn't. And it turns out they just gave Ian Book one too many chances. He led a really nice final drive, capped off by a 5-yard touchdown run by him. He had 2 fourth-down conversions on the drive, including a 4th and 10. Threw a nice post route over the middle and got the Irish inside the 10. So great job by Book. Very frustrating loss if you're Justin Fuente and Virginia Tech, just because you had so many chances to put the game away. Couldn't do that on the offensive side of the ball. So as for Virginia Tech, it doesn't really affect them too much as far as the ACC Coastal standings, because it was a non-conference game, but certainly shows their deficiencies. They'll play Wake Forest next week. I think that'll be a big game for them. Virginia Tech still got a lot of big games left. I mean, they're still right in it in the Coastal race. Like I said, they'll play Wake Forest next week. They still got to play Pitt. They still got to go on the road and play Virginia. So they have everything in front of them. And this loss only puts them to 5-3. So they still have a lot to play for. But just certainly a frustrating loss for them. But as for Notre Dame, a huge win for Brian Kelly. People would have been all down his back if they lost this one, especially after the way that they looked against Michigan last week. Credit Ian Book, though. Really gutsy performance. Was able to overcome some turnovers and really lead a nice final drive. They'll play at Duke next week, but big difference in South Bend right now between 6-2 and 5-3. So big win for the Fighting Irish. Very frustrating loss for Virginia Tech. Next in the ACC, guys, Virginia pulls out an impressive 38-31 win at North Carolina and takes complete control of the Coastal Division. This game was 17-17 at the half, all tied up, but Virginia did a great job scoring on their first 2 possessions of the second half. Their quarterback, Bryce Perkins, though, was absolutely terrific. He was 30 of 39 for 378 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, and he also added 112 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So just a dominant game from Bryce Perkins. Heisman caliber type performance from him. Guy I've been critical of. I was not bought into Virginia coming into the game, but Bryce Perkins absolutely balled out. So definitely hats off to him for that one. As for North Carolina, Sam Howell didn't play bad. I mean, he was 15 of 29, but he had 353 yards and 4 touchdowns. He found De'Ami Brown 6 times for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Brown was certainly his deep threat. And just like we've seen, North Carolina is not afraid to use that freshman quarterback, take shots. It certainly worked at times this game. But like I said, guys, Virginia being able to jump out to that 2-possession lead after half proved to be huge in this one because it was back and forth after that. But those 2 possessions really proved to be critical towards the end of the game. So as Virginia, like I said, they completely control their own destiny now. And they have a fairly easy road. I mean, they only have 2 conference games left. They'll play Georgia Tech next week. Shouldn't be any problem there. Georgia Tech's not very good this year. And then their only other conference game is against Virginia Tech, and that's also at home. They actually have a chance to clinch the division before that. It has to do with how Miami plays. If Miami loses again, I think Virginia will have clinched the Coastal Division because I think Miami's the only team that has the tiebreaker over Virginia. Remember, Miami beat them on a Friday night a few weeks ago. So like I said, guys, Virginia is certainly in the best spot in the Coastal right now, sitting at first place, and definitely has the easiest schedule out of anybody. As for North Carolina, certainly disappointing. Now dropped to 4-5. They still got to go play Pitt. Still got to go play NC State. So it's pretty crazy to think about for Mac Brown. His team's now 4-5, and now they're looking from being first in the Coastal to possibly not even making a bowl game. So crazy turnaround there. We'll see if Mac Brown can turn things around starting next week. And then last in the ACC, guys, Miami embarrasses Florida State 27-20. They improved to 5-4, and this game results in Willie Taggart being fired for Florida State. Jaron Williams got the start for Miami, and he was terrific. He was 21 of 37 for 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. Found Jeff Thomas for a 39-yard touchdown, and then found D. Wiggins for a 56-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, and that ended up being the dagger. Made the game 24-10 and really put it out of reach for Florida State. Great job by the Miami defense to hold star running back Cam Akers to only 22 carries for 66 yards. Florida State quarterback Alex Hornibrook wasn't terrible. I mean, he was 17 of 24, but he only had 135 yards out of that. He had 1 touchdown to 1 pick. And at the end of the day, Florida State was only 5 of 17 on third down, and Hornibrook was sacked 8 times. So the offensive line has been a problem for a while. Certainly came through this one. The Miami defense has been good all year, and they really showed up in this one. So like I said, guys, Willie Taggart is out as the Florida State head coach. I was actually prepping for this video right before that announcement came out. So it came out, and I just want to mention that Willie Taggart is out. It'll be interesting to see who Florida State targets next. Being a blue blood program like they are, it certainly should be a big name. It's probably going to be one of these head coaches from the American, maybe Mike Norvell. Who knows? I'm going to make a video about that this week just to kind of give some of my opinions there. But Willie Taggart is out. But that's for Miami. Big win for Miami, winning this rivalry game. First year under Manny Diaz. Third in a row for Miami winning this game. They still got to play Louisville and go to Duke. But, being 5-4 right now, certainly in a good spot. Almost definitely going to make a bowl game. And who knows? Maybe they can win out and finish 8-4. But big win for Miami. Next, guys, on to the Big 10. First story here, Michigan continues to roll with a 38-7 road win over Maryland. Maryland was only 4 of 16 on third down in this one. Quarterback Josh Jackson was only 9 of 20 passing, so Michigan defense certainly came up big in this one. Shea Patterson was 13 of 22 for 151 yards and a touchdown, so just kind of like he's been all year. He's not going to wow you, just kind of manages the game and makes a few throws here and there, but Shea certainly played well enough to win this game. Big story here, though, Hassan Haskins, fresh off a game where he had 150 yards. He had another great game, 13 carries, 60 yards, a touchdown. Zach Charbonnet has been good all year for them. He had 8 carries for 28 yards and 2 touchdowns, so it was just an all-around solid win for Michigan. Defense played well. The offense played well enough. They'll have a bye week next week. They'll host Michigan State. That's a rivalry game. Should be a close game. And then they'll go to Indiana, and then obviously host Ohio State to end the year. 7-2, put themselves in a good spot. As for Maryland, Mike Locksley came over from Alabama. Big part of Tua Tagovailoa's success. Definitely showed flashes the first 2 weeks, scoring 77 and 63, but I've really fallen off since then. Definitely think he's the guy, but just not his year. Next in the Big 10, guys, Nebraska continues to be a huge disappointment. This time losing at Purdue 31-27 and dropping to 4-5 on the year. Quarterback Adrian Martinez finally back from his leg injury, but certainly not 100%. Was 22 of 39 for 247 yards and 1 pick. Did add some value on the ground with 58 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Certainly not 100%. Left plenty of plays out there where a healthy Adrian Martinez would certainly be able to make some more plays. But as for Purdue, they came ready to play. And I don't know if y'all saw it. Drew Brees was there, obviously former quarterback at Purdue, Drew Brees, gave one of the best pregame speeches I've ever heard. I'll leave the link to that in the description below, guys. Y'all got to check that out. Purdue certainly responded. They were ready to play. I mean, Jack Plummer, their quarterback, was 25 of 34 for 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. He actually got hurt, and they had to bring in third-string quarterback Aiden O'Connell. He ended up being 6 of 7, and he led a great game-winning drive. The play that won it for him was actually a reverse to their receiver David Bell, reversed to the left, and they were able to score with a minute left and get the victory. But as for Nebraska, guys, like I said, certainly a big disappointment. They'll get a much-needed bye week. Scott Frost is going to get a ton of heat for this one, especially after he was able to turn around UCF in 2 years from no wins to undefeated. This being year 2 and them still continuing to struggle despite having a ton of talent. He's going to get a lot of heat for this one. Realistically, they might not make a bowl game. They still got to play Wisconsin and Iowa sitting at 4 and 5. There's certainly a chance that they drop both those games and don't make a bowl game for the second year in a row. That would be terrible for Scott Frost and the trajectory of the program. But that's for Purdue, guys. Now 3 and 6. They've dealt with a lot of injuries this year. Jeff Brom's a great football coach, and who knows, maybe they can start to get some guys healthy. They played Northwestern next week, so should be a win for them, and who knows, maybe they can finish the year 6 and 6 and make a bowl game. We'll see. Last in the Big 10, guys, Indiana is quietly 7 and 2 after a 34-3 dominant win against Northwestern. The running back Stevie Scott has been terrific this year. I mean, he's at 100-yard games in 3 of his last 4 games. No different yesterday. He had 26 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both Peyton Ramsey and Michael Penix Jr. played in this game at quarterback. Both did a solid job. So as for this Indiana team, they beat everybody they were supposed to. They did get dominated by Ohio State 51-10. That game was not even close. They also lost to Michigan State 40-31, but now 7 and 2. They will still have to play Penn State on the road and then host Michigan. So certainly a lot of football left to play for them. Like I said, guys, the Hoosiers are 7 and 2, and definitely something to note as we head towards the end of the year. Moving on to the Big 12, guys, Baylor survives a scare from West Virginia, but do find a way to win and improve to 8-0 in the process. Baylor played super sloppy, guys. Charlie Brewer was sacked 7 times. The Bears had 3 fumbles, and they also got stood up on the goal line. So definitely left a lot of points out there on the field. As for West Virginia, quarterback Austin Kendall had an 83-yard touchdown pass, but otherwise this offense was very conservative and definitely very ineffective. The Baylor offense actually statistically played pretty well. Like I said, just missed a lot of opportunities. Charlie Brewer was 20 of 26 for 277 yards and 2 touchdowns. Found Denzel Mims 5 times for 99 yards and a touchdown. Jermichael Hasty, their running back, had 14 carries for 77 yards. Backup running back John Lovett, 12 carries for 49 yards. So as for Baylor, guys, they're just finding ways to win. Definitely haven't put it all together yet, but at the end of the day, good football teams find ways to win when they're not at their best. So give a lot of credit to Baylor. They'll go on the road to play TCU next week, and to be honest, I think that's going to be a really good game. Knowing Gary Patterson and how good of a defensive coach he is, I mean, if West Virginia is able to sack Charlie Brewer 7 times, Gary Patterson's licking his chops right now, because if the Baylor line plays like that, then TCU defense is going to dominate this game. But certainly one to watch there. They'll immediately play Oklahoma the next week, so the road's certainly getting tougher for Baylor, and they're going to have to sharpen up a little bit. But nevertheless, guys, the Bears improved to 8-0 and sit atop the Big 12. Next in the Big 12, guys, Oklahoma State handles TCU at home 34-27. Tough news came out on Friday for the Cowboys. Star receiver Tylan Wallace announced he was going to be out for the year after a torn ACL. But great job by the Cowboys to respond to that this game. Really used the ground game in this one, guys. Chuba Hubbard, 20 carries for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. Just a dominant performance from him. Spencer Sanders, their quarterback, also added 88 yards on the ground. Sanders to the air, he only threw the ball 15 times, did have 9 completions for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns, as well as a pick. Without Tylan Wallace, Sanders relied a lot on junior receiver Dylan Stoner. He had 3 catches for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns, so certainly now Sanders' biggest threat. Stoner's more of a possession receiver, but certainly a guy who stepped up. Big difference in this game for TCU. It was 4 turnovers. Max Duggan had 3 interceptions. The Cowboys were actually not able to get anything off the first 3 turnovers, but fourth one proved costly for TCU. Second play of the following drive, Chuba Hubbard had a 62-yard touchdown and kind of sealed the deal. And you have to give a lot of credit to Oklahoma State. They've really started to turn things around after 3 conference losses. They're now 6 and 3. They'll have a bye week. And then they'll have a fairly easy next 2 games. They'll host Kansas and then go on the road to West Virginia. Should be 8 and 3 there, and then they'll host OU to close the year in Bedlam. Who knows? You know, if Oklahoma State's 8 and 3 in that game, means their offense is going to be continue to be rolling. Who knows? Maybe they can surprise the Sooners there, but that's a ways down the road. Definitely a good job by the Cowboys though. And as for TCU, I mentioned they'll play Baylor next week. It's got to be frustrating for Gary Patterson, but at the end of the day, while his team sits at 4-4, I think they're a type of team that can both lose to anybody but also beat anybody. Last in the Big 12, guys, Kansas State's able to beat Kansas in Lawrence 38-10. This game was actually hyped up because this was the first Kansas game that was sold out in over a decade. Kansas State played a really good football game, though. They were able to hold Kansas playmaker Puka Williams to only 14 carries for 61 yards. And Kansas quarterback Carter Stanley only had 115 yards, and he also had 2 picks in this one. But as for the Kansas State offense, they completely committed to the ground game. Skylar Thompson only attempted 16 passes, and he did put 129 yards out of it. But Skylar Thompson, really out of nowhere, had 127 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground in this one. Running Kansas State running back James Gilbert was actually out of this one, so transfer from Louisville, Harry Trotter. He had 20 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown, stepped up big for the Wildcats in this one. Tyler Burns, he also had 7 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. So Kansas State shut down all the hype. They'll have a big game against Texas next weekend in Austin. I'm going to be there in that one, and that's a game I'm very nervous about. I think Kansas State's a really good football team. They got so many playmakers on the ground. Like I said, Trotter just seems to slide in for James Gilbert whenever he's out. Skylar Thompson, of all the sudden, is a dual threat quarterback. And at the end of the day, Texas has struggled with dual threat quarterbacks all year. So that's going to be something to watch for sure. That's possibly a game, depending on how Baylor holds up. That game could have Big 12 title implications. Definitely going to be one to watch in Austin next week. It's going to be a 2:30 kick. But as for Kansas, they'll have a bye week to get things kind of figured out. They're now 3-6, and they're going to have a really tough end of the year. I mean, they got to go to Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. They have to go to Ames, Iowa to play Iowa State, and they got to play Baylor at home. So things are going to get really hard for Kansas here. Definitely a big story in this one is Kansas State comes into Lawrence and just dominates.